Hey guys, so today we're talking about rational expressions and simplifying them. So a rational expression is a ratio of two polynomial expressions. To simplify a rational expression, the first thing you want to do is factor everything that can be factored. The second thing is simplify the monomials using the exponent rules. And then the third thing is eliminate common binomial factors. So on number one right here, we can actually just divide this out. So 20 over 14, they both divide by 2, so it simplifies down to 10 over 7. X to the 6th divided by x squared. Well, you just do your quotient rule, so you're subtracting the exponent, so it's x to the 4th, and because it's a positive exponent, it's going to go in the numerator with the 10. And that's all you have to do on that one. On number 2, we need to take out the greatest common factor out of the numerator, so we can factor a 6 out of both of those. So 6k divided by 6 is k, and negative 36 divided by 6 is negative 6. Okay, now that that's factored, we want to simplify here by eliminating out some binomials. So because these two are the same right here, they can cancel out, and you're just left with 6 as your answer. On number 3, we need to factor the denominator. So what multiplies together to get negative 48 and adds together to get 2, okay? That's going to be 8 and negative 6. So that y plus 8 for the numerator, we just bring down. We have y plus 8 and y minus 6. Okay, these end up canceling each other out. So since that cancels right there, the only thing that you're going to have left in your numerator, because you always have to have something there, is just going to be a 1. So our answer is going to be 1 over y minus 6. Okay, on number 4. In the numerator, first thing you want to do is you can take a greatest common factor of 2 out of everything. So then that leaves you with r squared minus r minus 20. In the denominator, you can take an 8 out of everything, and that leaves you with r plus 4. Okay, in the numerator, we still need to simplify this right here some more. We need to factor that. So what multiplies to give you negative 20 and adds to give you a negative 1? It's going to be a negative 5 and 4. Okay, so we just carry that 2 over, and we have r minus 5. And we have r plus 4. And this is all over 8 r plus 4. Okay, so our r plus 4s, those are going to cancel each other out. And then 2 over 8, that simplifies down to 1/4. Okay, now since we have r minus 5 in the numerator, we don't actually have to put a 1 there. So we can just say r minus 5, and the whole thing is over 4. And that's our final answer. Okay, on number 5 right here, actually before we do that, watch out that if you have a minus b over b minus a, so if the terms are just the opposite right here, then it's going to cancel everything out. It's actually going to equal negative 1. And the reason why that is because if we were to, let's say on the numerator right here, if we were to get the we want to change the sign on this, so what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to take out a greatest common factor of a negative 1, and then that turns that a to a negative a, and that b to a positive. Okay, and then if we were to flip that around to where it's in the same order as that, then it's going to be a negative 1, and then b minus a. So then, therefore, that's over b minus a, so then those cancel, and all you're left with is the negative 1. So that's why it equals that. Okay, so on number 5 right here, so in the numerator, we need to do the difference of squares. So we have p plus 7 and p minus 7, and it's all over 7 minus p. So since these right here are the opposites of each other, then it's going to cancel out and it's going to equal negative 1. So that leaves us with negative 1 p plus 7. And we actually want to simplify that. We want to distribute that through right here. So we have negative 1 times p is negative p, and negative 1 times 7 is negative 7. And that's our final answer. Okay, on number 6, in the numerator, we take out a greatest common factor. We can take a 3a out of both of those. And so when we do that, we're left with a 4a squared and minus 1. In the denominator, we can take out a 6a squared out of both. Okay, and then we're left with 2a plus 1. Okay, so then in the numerator right here, we can still do the difference of squares to simplify that again. So that 3a, we're just going to bring it over. Difference of squares right here, that's going to be 2a plus 1 and 2a minus 1. Okay, so now to cancel, we can cancel these out. And then our 3a and our 6a squared, that can simplify down. 3 over 6 simplifies down to 1/2. And then a over a squared is going to simplify down to a to the power of negative 1. And so that means that that a is actually going to go down to the denominator. So that only leaves us with a 1 in our numerator here, which means that we just have a 2a minus 1. And then because that simplified down to 1/2, we have a 2 down here. And then that was a to the power of negative 1, so we have an a down here. Okay, and that is our final answer. And the reason why we cannot simplify that anymore is because this is a binomial here, so you'd have to be able to divide both of these terms by this, and we can't do that. Okay, on number 7, out of the numerator, we can take a 2 out of everything, and that leaves us with 3n squared plus 4n plus 1. Out of the denominator, we can also take a 2 out, and that leaves us with n squared minus 1. Okay, in the numerator, we can do the difference of squares. I'm sorry, I said difference of squares. Sorry, slip and slide method. We can do slip and slide method with this and slip this down here to the end. So that 2 we just pull down, and we end up having n squared plus 4n, and 3 times 1 is 3. Okay, in the denominators where we're going to do difference of squares. So that 2 we just pull over, and we have n plus 1 and n minus 1. Okay, we need to finish the numerator right there. So what multiplies together to get 3 and adds to get 4? What's 3 and 1? Okay, and I'm just going to write that out here over here to the side so we can finish that off. So, okay, and because we multiplied times 3 up here, we have to divide by 3. So we have n plus 1, and then that needs to turn up here so that we have 3n plus 1. Okay, so okay, so then we have 2, and then we have n plus 1 and 3n plus 1, and it's over 2 n plus 1 and n minus 1. Okay, so our 2's cancel, our n plus 1's cancel. So that means that we are left with 3n plus 1 over n minus 1. Sebastian, stop. I'm making a video. Okay. All right, on number 8 here, okay, so out of the numerator, we need to take out a greatest common factor. We can factor a 5 out of everything. Okay, so that leaves us with 9 minus w. In our denominator, we can do slip and slide method. So we're going to take our 3 and slip it down here to the end, and so that gives us w squared minus 28w, and 3 times 9 is 27. So then what multiplies to give you 27 and adds to give you negative 28? Okay, well you can do negative 27 and negative 1. So that's w minus 27 and w minus 1. Since we multiplied times 3 right there, here we have to divide by 3. So that gives you w minus 9, and this turns into 3w minus 1. Okay, so to simplify this, I'm just going to rewrite it. So we have 5 and then 9 minus w, and it's over w minus 9 and 3w minus 1. Okay, so 9 minus w and w minus 9, well, that's like what we went over here. They're in opposite positions there, so that's just going to cancel and equal -1. So that is 5 times -1 in the numerator, which becomes a -5, and we are still over 3w minus 1, and that is our final answer. Okay, all right, let's flip over to the back side. Let's talk about multiplying rational expressions. So if the problem contains a monomials only, you just multiply together, then simplify. If it contains binomials or trinomials, you have to factor everything you can first and then simplify. Okay, so on number 9 here, they're just monomials. So all you have to do is just multiply straight across, and then we can simplify them down. So 6 times 10 is 60. X squared and x cubed is going to be x to the 5th. Y cubed and y to the 4th is going to be y to the 7th. 2 times 18 is 36. X squared, and there's only x's over here, so the x squared you just pull over. Y squared and y squared is going to be y to the 4th. Okay, now we want to simplify this by doing our quotient rule. So 60 over 36 is going to simplify down to 5 over 3. X to the 5th over x squared is going to be x cubed, and because it's a positive exponent, it goes to the numerator. Y to the 7th over y to the 4th is also y cubed, go to the numerator, and that's our final answer. Okay, on number 10, same thing because they're just monomials, so we multiply straight across. So 4 times 5 is 20. A to the 2nd times a to the 3rd power is a to the 5th. B squared times b to the 6th is b to the 8th. 15 times 12 is 180. A times a to the 4th is a to the 5th. B cubed times b to the 7th is b to the 10th. Okay, then we want to simplify. 20 over 180 simplifies down to 1/9. A to the 5th over a to the 5th, well, those just cancel each other out. B to the 8th over b to the 10th, that's b to the -2nd power, so since it's a negative exponent, it needs to go down here to the denominator, so it's b squared right here, and that's our answer. Okay, on number 11, this time we have operations in here, so we have to do binomials or trinomials. So we need to factor everything you can first and then simplify. Okay, so in the numerator on this side, we can take a 4x out of everything. Okay, so 4x squared divided by 4x is x. Negative 4x divided by 4x is -1. In the denominator, we can factor a 2 out. That leaves us with x squared plus 2x minus 3. Okay, then we want to factor this again. We can do basic factoring here. So what multiplies give you -3 and adds give you 2? It's going to be 3 and -1. So 2 we just pull down. We have x plus 3 and x minus 1. Okay, over here in our numerator, basic factoring, what multiplies to give you -6 and adds to give you 1? It's 3 and -2. So x plus 3 and x minus 2. In our denominator right here, we can take a 4x out of everything. So 4x squared divided by 4x is x. 8x divided by 4x is 2. Okay, so then what we want to do is we want to cancel out like what we did on the other side. So whatever is, if there's something in the numerator that's the same in the denominator, we can cancel those out. Okay, so our 4x's can cancel. Our x plus 3 can cancel. Our x minus 1s can cancel. So that leaves us with, in our numerator, we have an x minus 2. And in our denominator, we have a 2, and we have an x plus 2. Okay, and that's as simplified as we can get it. So that's all, we want to leave it just like that. Okay, number 12, same thing. So out of the numerator here, what can we take out? We can take a 5v out of both of those. So 10v divided by 5v is 2. Negative 5v squared divided by 5v is negative v. In our denominator, what multiplies to give you 18 and adds to give you negative 11 is going to be negative 9 and negative 2. So we say v minus 9 and v minus 2. Over here in our numerator, what multiplies to give you negative 9 and adds to give you negative 8 is going to be negative 9 and positive 1. So v minus 9 and v plus 1. And in our denominator, we can't simplify 15b. There's nothing you can take out of that to simplify it down. So really you can just leave it like that. Okay, so now we want to simplify and cancel here. So we have our v minus 9s cancel out. Right here we have 2 minus v over v minus 2. Well, that just cancels to equal a negative 1. Okay, 5v over 15v, that's just going to simplify down. The v's are going to cancel each other out, but 5 over 15 simplifies down to 1/3. Okay, so what we're going to have left here, I'm just going to simplify this as much as I can. So these cancel, we're left with a 3 in the denominator because there's nothing else down here. In our numerator, we have a negative 1, and we have a v plus 1. Okay, and if we want to simplify this right here, we can, to where that equals negative v minus 1 over 3. Okay, and that's our final answer. Dividing rational expressions. To divide rational expressions, multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, because remember, you cannot divide by a fraction, so we have to turn it into multiplication instead. And so that means you just flip it over. Okay, so on 13, to be able to do this, all you have to do is flip this over to h q to the 5th over 35p squared q squared. And it turns to multiplication. Okay, so that's all you have to do here. So then from there, you are just going to simplify down. So you have to take out, well, actually, I'm sorry, you have to multiply straight across. So you have 5 times 8 is 40. You just carry the p over. Q times q to the 5th is q to the 6th. And then 16 times 35 is 560. And we have p cubed times p squared is p to the 5th. And then that q squared we just carry over. Then we want to simplify from there. So 40 over 560. 40 over 560 simplifies down to 1/14. Okay, and since we have, we're going to end up with something in the numerator, we don't actually have to write the 1. You can, but you don't have to. So we can just, well, I guess to start off with, we can. So 1/14, p over p to the 5th is p to the negative 4th. Since it has a negative exponent, you want to put it in the denominator. Q to the 6th over q squared is q to the 4th. And as positive, it's going to go in the numerator. Okay, and if you want to leave it like that, you can, but you don't actually have to write the 1 right there. You can just leave it just like that. Okay, on 14, same thing. So since it's division here, you just want to flip, you want to multiply and multiply by the reciprocal here. So we're just going to flip this over to x squared plus x minus 6, and it's over 2x squared plus 6x. Okay, so then from there, we want to simplify this. We're going to factor out what we can. Okay, out of the numerator on this one, we can't do anything with that, so we just leave it as 10. In the denominator, we can factor a 4 out of everything, so that leaves us with x minus 2. Over on this side, in our numerator, we can factor that. What multiplies to give you negative 6 and adds to give you 1. That is x plus 3 and x minus 2. In our denominator, we can take a 2x out of everything, and that leaves us with x plus 3. Okay, so then from there, you just want to simplify. So our x plus 3's cancel, our x minus 2's cancel. Okay, so then we can actually simplify down the 10 fourths right here. We can simplify that down to 5 over 2, and we are still multiplying times, well, if there's nothing over here, that's 1 over 2x. Okay, so then if we multiply straight across, and that is 5 over 4x. Okay, or if you want to look at it like 4 times 2x is 8x, so 10 over 8x, and then simplify from there, same thing. You're going to end up getting the same thing, 5 over 4x. Okay, 15, same thing. So change this to multiplication and then multiply by the reciprocal. So it's a squared minus 8a plus 15 over 24a squared minus 8a cubed. Okay, and then you want to factor. So what can we take out of this first one right here? We can take a 2a squared out. And that leaves us with a minus 6. In our denominator, what multiplies to give you negative 12 and adds to give you a negative 4. It's going to be a negative 6 and 2. So you say a minus 6 and a plus 2. Over here in the numerator, what multiplies to give you 15 and adds to give you a negative 8 is negative 5 and negative 3. So a minus 5, a minus 3. In our denominator, we can take an 8a squared out of everything. And that leaves us with 3 and then minus a. Okay, so then we want to cancel from there. So our a minus 6 cancels. The 2a squared and the 8a squared, that just simplifies down to 1/4. So we know that there's going to be a 4 in the denominator. Our a minus 3 and 3 minus a, that cancels to a negative 1. So we are left with, in our numerator, we have negative 1 times this. So negative 1 times a is negative a. Negative 1 times negative 5 is a positive 5. In our denominator, we had a 4, and then we still have our a plus 2. Okay, and that is our final answer. On 16, okay, so we have 2 different operations. And so remember, following PEMDAS, you have to work from left to right. When we're talking about when we're talking about division and multiplication, you just work from left to right. So we need to do this part right here first. So since this is not a fraction, to turn it to a fraction, you just put it over 1. Okay, so then if we're turning this to multiplication, then that turns into, we're multiplying 1 over 4k plus 1. Okay, so then we're just multiplying straight across right there. So that you don't actually have to multiply anything there or take anything out, because there's not any way to simplify that down the way that it is. So what we want to do now is this fraction over here, this ratio, we can actually simplify that. So in the numerator, we can do the difference of squares. So that turns to, I'm just going to rewrite this. So we have k plus 3 over k. We have 1 over 4k plus 1. And then this right here, difference of squares, we have 4k plus 1 and 4k minus 1. And in our denominator, we still have k plus 3. Okay, so our 4k's plus 1's, those are going to cancel each other out. our k's plus 3's, those are going to cancel each other out. So all that leaves us with, that 1 doesn't make a difference because you're doing 1 times that. So all that leaves us with is 4k minus 1 over k. And that is our final answer. Okay, so that sums up simplifying, multiplying, and dividing rational expressions.